I watched George Floyd take his last breath. And as a former police officer, former soldier, Marine, diversity officer liaison to the Pentagon, right? I mean, I was on a committee that helped create policy for all of the military services. A trained diversity practitioner, peacekeeper. I was one of those people who are on the streets right now, one of those men and women, the cops and National Guard soldiers, right? And on the other side, an openly gay Black woman. And I didn't know what to do. I said, oh my God, what do I do in this moment? What do I say? And of course, I immediately thought about social media. And I'm like, I've never talked about anything political. And very quickly, I said, this isn't political. This is about humanity, period. So I ended up writing an op-ed. It was in the Toronto Star about former cop, soldier, talks about new conversation. And what's the old conversation? The old conversation is a conversation that many Black parents have with their kids. My dad was teaching me how to drive. And he said, pull over. I'm going to ask you a question. It's not going to be on the test, but it's the most important. What do you do when the cops pull you over? Hands visible, 10 and 2. That's right, he said. It's like, but Dad, what if I didn't do anything wrong? It doesn't matter. Dad didn't want me to be right. He wanted me to come home that night. I remember it was Christmas time. It was snowing, sleeting outside. It was wet, dreary, cold. Had on these huge coats. We go into Radio Shack, and I know I'm totally dating myself, right? Went into Radio Shack, and the associate said, hey, I'm gonna need you to take your coats off. And I started to take my coat off, and my sister's like, no, don't take your coat off. He said, ma'am, it's store policy. I'm gonna need you to take your coats off. She's like, well, no one else has their coats off. Why are you only asking us? And he said, ma'am, if you don't take your coats off, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave the store. My sister looked at me, she said, come on, let's go. And we got outside. Again, I'm 11 or 12. And I said, why did he want us to take our coats off? We weren't gonna steal anything. And she just looked at me and said, it doesn't matter. It does matter. And yes, Black lives matter. And yes, all lives matter. And when I hear the all lives matter in defense of Black Lives Matter, I think if my wife came home and said, hey, if I said, hey, babe, did you miss me? She's like, I missed everyone. Or do you love me? I love everyone, right? I'm probably going to feel a little about that. Or when I'm in a breast cancer march, right? And are there people, what about colon cancer? What about lung cancer? No, we're there for a common cause. And unfortunately, this movement has been politicized. But at the end of the day, and this is what leadership is really all about, at the end of the day, how do we want to treat our people? How do we want to be treated? How, when our folks walk in the door to come to work, whether they're walking into a physical building or they're walking into their home office and their kids are homeschooling at the kitchen table, and we're all just trying to figure out this work-life balance, work-life integration, work-life harmony. We're just trying to figure life out. At the end of the day, how do we want people to feel? When we think about diversity, inclusion, belonging, I'll be honest, I never wanted to be one of the guys, but I absolutely wanted to be part of the team. Do I think that is solely an HR function? Absolutely not. It's everybody's function. Whoever is on our team, it's our responsibility, from the first man or woman who just onboarded all the way up to our senior executives, our leadership, our CEO, our board, and our chairman of the board. We are all responsible for that inclusive environment, because at the end of the day, we're shifting things, we're moving the needle, we're changing lives.